Is the long-awaited Trump storm finally breaking? Or has that imaginary storm always been broken since day one? That's the question on this Wednesday morning, March 22nd, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and good night to you, and welcome to Good Morning Trumptopia, a special segment of the almost daily ZenCast, a rough and tumble, real, raw, and radically unscripted podcast listened to in 25 countries around the totally not flat globular Earth.
Good morning, Trumptopia. A special segment of the almost daily ZenCast. Hosted by the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Let's talk Trump.
First, a quick flashback to a delightful moment of public speaking by dear old Donnie Don Trump.
The following is a real quote by Donald J. Trump as captured by multiple media outlets.
On political corruption, we are going to restore honor to our government. In my administration, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law.
He said that on August 18th, 2016. Donald Trump quotes, "Age so gracefully."
Like fine wines in oak barrels. The grapes of Donald J. Trump's absurdly worded statements, they age so well. No one is above the law, and he likes to pronounce, when it's plural, laws as lars, which I don't understand. What is up with that? But that's neither here nor there. That's the least of our concerns. Welcome, friends. Welcome to Good Morning Trumptopia. Real, raw, radically unscripted, and there from day one. For those of you who may be new to the show, please be advised, I've had the controversial opinion that Trump is a shuckster, a shill, and a snake oil salesman since before. And I'll repeat this a few times so that it sinks into people's heads. Since before he announced he was going to run. Okay? I was there commenting in real time since the day he rode down that gold-colored escalator from his gold-plated apartment in Trump Tower in front of a cast of hired extras from a central casting type extras acting agency in New York. All right, friends? And I will humbly remind you that I was calling him out preemptively in an attempt to dissuade as many Republicans to vote for him as humanly possible. Now, at that time, I didn't have any audience reach. I've grown a bit since then, so welcome aboard, fans and friends and community members. And let me remind you all, and I don't want to sound smug, okay? I'm not a I told you so kind of person, but in this moment, I effing told you so. The simplest, clearest explanation for Trump has been, to my eyes, from the beginning, in my humble opinion, that he is a useful, loose cannon, blunderbuss puppet let loose into the political spectrum to create chaos, wreak havoc, and generally push the pendulum of American culture as far to the right as humanly possible. I may have sounded a little bit preemptively angry at Trump at the time. To anyone who didn't remember his 50 years worth of personal history, riddled with racist business practices, abuse from his uncle and father, weird, creepy sexual innuendo about inappropriately aged women, the fact that he used to own a teen beauty contest and would hang out very inappropriately in the dressing rooms with underage girls. Okay? In this reactionary whiplash world where drag queens are outlawed because of an imagined threat to children, where was the outrage at Donald Trump? From the golden escalator moment to the grab him by the word you can't say on the air moment to everything in between, me, myself, and I here at CTech Studios, along with DJ Zed, who's looking at me impatiently to start playing some of his music, have been here with you commenting on all of it in real time. And dare I say, I'm not one to make predictions, and I'm not one to pat myself on the back for being right about predictions that I did make. But dare I say, I think our commentary here at the Almost Daily ZenCast has been a little bit more accurate to reality than anything coming out of Fox News or your average underinformed Trump voter. No offense. But they've literally created a cult of personality for themselves, and we're going to talk about it, some of its foibles, the ever-increasing, escalating legal problems, and where the snafus I foresee happening that might lead to a very disappointing result for anyone who's been hoping and praying that Trump will wind up in bars. But first, friends, let us purge and cleanse the palate with a little bit of Discotheque Synthetica, your new favorite literary imaginary music genre from a book series you haven't even started reading yet. Find out more at solo.to/Mr. Zeppo. Here is a remix live to tape, improvised, digital asset remix performance entitled Interstate Cultural Interchange from an unnamed album. We're going to go ahead and slap that. Well, I may not be able to find it. Anyways, here it comes. Enjoy. We'll be back on the other side to talk about the most recent Trump madness. Do you remember when Trump said, "I alone can fix this," and then proceeded to absolutely not fix anything at all? In fact, he kind of made a bunch of things worse. Slowly but surely, Trump supporters are opening their eyes, realizing just how hard they got played by this what is it? What has he done? What is it? What's the word for when you run a business into the ground and then cause it to fail and then... Oh, multi-bankruptcy. That's the term I'm looking for. They got played by a multi-bankruptcy pathological liar who was too sweaty for politics, to borrow a gaming term. He was way too sweats for the political game. DJ Zed, I love that track, but it's a little too mellow for my vibe today. Let's tune it out. DJ Zed refuses. He's staring at me like, just talk through it. If you want to enjoy DJ Zed's music without me talking through it, head on over to solo.do/Mr. Zeppo and click on through to the SoundCloud link. Your support would be greatly appreciated. Vote for your favorite tracks with your heart button smashing abilities. And stay tuned, as I've been teasing forever, a new album entitled The Future Was Yesterday will be dropping in the not too distant future. Okay, friends, so here is my central beef with the Republican Party. And this ain't nothing new. This has been an intellectual critique of the Republican Party and their overall worldview and hypocrisy since Ronald Reagan was in office, that I've had and have been vocally expressing since then, to the great dismay of Republicans wherever I may go, who of course then presume, quite inaccurately, they assume and project that I must be a die-hard, dyed-in-the-wool leftist of some kind. Maybe even a socialist, dare I be. But no, believe it or not, I'm not. I'm radically non-partisan because I quite clearly see that despite all the foaming at the mouth and the clutching of the pearls, that they wink, wink, nudge, nudge, help each other get away with what they each want to do in a delightfully absurd tug of war of politically engineered wedge issues of endless argumentation. Having said that, friends, let me remind you. Now, I had to restart the episode, so if I'm being a little extra repetitive right now in this moment, it's because I got really flustered that I was talking for like 15 minutes and I wasn't even live. I didn't notice that I had been like bumped off of live status right away. In fact, the system never even connected to servers, so I don't even think I initiated a broadcast. Here's what I said about Trump when he first arrived on the scene politically. Something to the effect of, and you can go see how close my memory recall is to what I actually said in the old episodes. But he's a useful blunderbuss. I'm saying this now. This is my refined expression of my intuition at the time. He was, and continues to be, a useful, saber-rattling, blunderbussing puppet of a political ideologue, okay? He inflames people. He riles up the base. He knows how to manipulate a crowd. A particular kind of crowd, which your average Joe Schmo politician has not had, on either side of the political aisle, has not had the best of luck approaching and inculcating and seducing to support them. Trump saw an opportunity. Okay? Now, whether he is the mastermind of five-dimensional chess that is outmaneuvering everyone else, or he's just a pufferfish, blowhard fabricator of nonsense, I'll let you decide. You obviously know which assessment I have of him. But I'm not telling you to believe... but I was talking about the GOP. Since before Trump ever arrived on the scene, my biggest concern and critique of the GOP is simple. They claim I'm not labeling them this. I'm not accusing them of something that is made up, which is something they like to do a lot to others. point in fact, all this demagoguery about Satanists and baby eaters and robot people, lizard people, the cray-cray googly-doo bobbly-gook. They might as well be talking about what's that old, the Babaduka or whatever her name is. The way they talk about anyone who opposes them, it's literally biblical. And when any party gets literally biblical, I start to doubt the veracity of their intellectual acumen. Not because believing in the Bible is inherently stupid, but because being manipulated by nonsense in the Bible is. Put pin on the corkboard there, because we've talked a lot about that sacred text and why I am simultaneously both super critical of it and supportive of some of its hidden gems. Go deep, deep, deep into the episodes, friends, and find the unauthorized and explicit readings episodes that will clarify my worldview position on that situation. But here's my beef. Since I became aware of the political party situation here way back in the dear old Ronald Reagan days, and I do remember, even though he loved to talk about how he couldn't, the GOP has claimed that they exclusively, to the detriment of all others, are the party of Jesus effing H. Christ, the Messiah, the chosen ones, the believers in Christ, okay? Now, we can have all kinds of opinions, and everyone's free to have their own opinions about Christ. You can disagree, you can agree, you can tell me he's made up, you can tell me he never existed. That's fine. We can get into that discussion. I've got some really weird, unusual, out-of-the-box ideas that are not satisfactory to either side of those co-opted and re-engineered wedge issue argumentations. Pin on the corkboard. If you're new, the corkboard is a system of interconnecting nodes of things we've already discussed and we'll probably discuss again on the show, so I'm not going to go in depth about them now. Jesus quite clearly says, feed the hungry. House the homeless. Help those that need help. The GOP has, for the entire time of my conscious life observing their legislative actions, worked waving the banner of we are Christ's chosen political party. In other words, somehow Christ has specifically benighted them as the superior Christ-oriented political party. Now, right there, at the get-go, I've got some issues. Christ was quite specific about politics, and it wasn't, I'm going to choose a special party and they can do no wrong. I don't think he ever effing said that. Pin on the corkboard. So the party claims to be something that Christ wouldn't do, and then proceeds to work in legislative fashion to do the opposite of what Christ taught. Which party fought balls to the wall to make it illegal to redistribute surplus food that supermarkets would otherwise throw away? Was that the evil robot, alien, lizard people, baby-eating, leftist, socialist, communists? I don't think so. I really don't. They might have helped each other out. I'm sure a Democrat or two somewhere on the line most certainly facilitated the process. But the party that owns that, whether they like to admit it or not, is the GOP. The GOP is constantly executing legislative action that works quite openly in contradiction of Christ's teachings, making it illegal to feed the hungry in many contexts, banning food reclamation projects which were created to feed the hungry. Their most recent effort to once again revoke food stamps. And they always use a convoluted bullshit argument claiming that the good and moral and Christian thing to do is to not allow government to create these kinds of programs, because letting the government feed the hungry, house the homeless, heal the sick for free is somehow inexplicably immoral. So who's supposed to do it? You would think that they would step up and say, we, the Church of Christ, will do it. But how many churches do you know that have housing built on their campuses? I'm sure there are some. But the vast majority of churches I've attended, visited, and seen in documentary footage or otherwise in the news and whatnot, do not. They explicitly do not have free, secure, available housing for the homeless with support services and mental health clinics. Many churches will facilitate or assist or donate to a food bank, but how many of them serve the food in their temple? Not enough, I would argue, and I think if Jesus were here as a guest on my show, he would agree. Wouldn't you, Jesus? I would ask him quite directly. Wouldn't you agree, dear Christ of the covenant, that more of the churches with your name on it should have beds? Excuse me, I had almost drowned in my own speaking voice there. More of the churches that you have your name on it should have beds, a soup kitchen, and health facilities in order to give aid and succor to those in need, the way Jesus taught. But it's amazeballs, the most luxuriously wealthy of GOP identifying, partisan, politically preaching Christian church owners, they act like they own a sports ball stadium more than they act like they run a house of Christ. And the politicians, well, don't even get me started, right? So that's always been a beef. That's always been my critique. If there's a reason why I'm harder on the right than the left in terms of the content I choose to address on my show, it's because that's my biggest irritant. There's plenty of issues with the left, friends. There's corruption everywhere. Hello, have you met the human species? There's a reason why corruption spreads everywhere, regardless of political inclination. Multiple pins on the corkboard. DJ said we're going out of time. DJ Zed is looking at me, reminding me that we're going overtime. Here is a live to tape remix live Tribal Techno 101 audio entertainment asset track for your enjoyment, echoes of our underground past. It's all about the pendulum swing. I'm going to say it again, just because I'm having a memory snafu, and I can't remember if I got back to my statement that I lost the thread on because of the whole stream interruption earlier. Here's what I said about Trump in real time back in the day, and I'm not one to make predictions. I'm not one to pat myself on the back. about predictions I did not make. I leave all of those shenanigans to the conspiracy theory community. But here is something I factually said. I literally said it. It's in multiple episodes, going as far back as 2016 to when he announced that he was running for office. In my humble opinion, the reason he was allowed to win, the reason he was encouraged to run as a Republican, the reason we had a Trump administration was because, whether it was conscious or unconscious, spiritual or mechanical, the pendulum swinging of American ideological, cultural trends was leaning a little too far to the left. And the powers that be, whoever they may be, thought, how could we, and I'm speculating here, right? I don't pretend to know nothing about nothing. I'm telling you this is what I think based on the actual factual events that we all witnessed. It very much seemed to me at the time, and with hindsight now, seems like I wasn't wrong, that Trump was a tool to facilitate pushing the pendulum of American culture as far to the right as possible. You can listen to all of DJ Zed's tracks without me talking through them at soundcloud.com/Mr. Zeppo. Come on down to solo.to/Mr. Zeppo to check out the SoundCloud account and all the other content creation projects involved in the Zeppoverse. Welcome to the Zeppoverse. You're glad to be here. We're glad to have you here. I'm your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. You're listening to DJ Zed, my imaginary friend and literary sidekick from a book series you haven't even read yet, and creator of Discotheque Synthetica, your new favorite imaginary literary music genre from another dimension. That was Echoes of Our Underground Past, a Tribal Techno 101 live to tape remix live audio asset entertainment improvised performance by yours truly and DJ Zed. Oh, tune in for for new pages on the many musical adventures of DJ Zed and Mr. Zeppo, dropping on Wattpad.com. All of that information is available on solo.to/Mr. Zeppo. Enough self-promotion. So, if Donald Trump was intended to push the American cultural pendulum as far to the right as possible, do you think that was successful? I do. We got the Boberts of the world and her whole horde of friends talking about literally divorcing the red states from the blue states. We got Golden Idol statue making Trump acolytes calling the rest of the world deranged for not blindly believing in the snake oil that this shuckster is shucking. What did he fix? Not a whole heck of a lot. And almost everything that he patted himself on the back for was a ruse. Remember when I first called this out? Carrier Air Conditioning Company. How many Trumptopians even remember that malarkey? It was his first big executive thing that everyone went, see, he wasn't full of shit. He's really saving jobs. He's really the only one that can fix it all. All sleight of hand. Complete bullshit. He makes a big to-do about supposedly forcing Carrier Air Conditioning Company to save a factory. And they did indeed not shut down the factory that he went and made a televised appearance at. But guess what? Days later, they shut down a different location and fired a bunch of different people. Not fixing anything. So while there are a few things he did do that I actually can't disagree with, I mean, even a broken clock is going to get the hour right twice a day if you look at just the right moment, right? There's a couple of things that Trump, or rather the Trump administration, because I think Trump was mostly preoccupied with tweeting and watching Fox News and eating chicken McNuggets. I mean, and or Kentucky Fried Chicken. I mean, that seems to be what he fills his days with. And the rest of it is something that just sort of gets done around him. Except for when he decides to stick his fingers in the pies and mess things up. So despite the occasional random thing that the Trump administration did that even I cannot disagree with, the rest of it has been a clusterfuck of chaos and calamity. As a social media acquaintance of mine pointed out, and I'm adapting a borrowed post from social media, just some of the highlights that have just recently been, like, you know, proven to be disastrous. Trump literally appointed the man in charge of the EPA that deregulated the brake systems for railway cars. Right? That company, I already forget what they're called. Northern Suffolk Northern, North South Sucky, fuck, Southern, sorry, pardon the F-bomb. That company successfully lobbied the Trump administration to strip away and deregulate braking systems for their cars, which, by the way, are currently still using technology that's over 100 years old. And then, I don't know, the worst Toxic Avengers spill in ages. I don't know how many mutant babies are going to come out of Ohio, but brace yourselves. Now, the conspiracy theory community went on a distractionary whirlwind muddying the waters tour of like, train derailments, it's the latest ruse, this never happens, and suddenly it's a big fucking deal. I'm sorry. This is what happens when people believe whatever nonsense and don't actually personally verify anything while patting themselves on the back for quote unquote researching and personally verifying everything. Trains have been derailing since we invented trains. Period. Full stop. In the modern era, since record keeping became mandatory, because apparently for a really long time, for over 100 years, we didn't think it was necessary to keep a safety record. In fact, I'm sure the Republican Party fought against it because, I don't know, some malarkey about lizard people eating brains and government overreach. But since safety data tracking became mandatory, there has been an average of 1,700 train derailment incidents a year. Yes, most of them did not include massive amounts of toxic waste, which then had to be burned off. But that's neither here nor there. Trains are dangerous. They always have been. And some people have been fighting against every single effort to update the infrastructure, to fix the bridges, to improve the rail line safety systems, to update and upgrade the transportation cars themselves. And gee, I wonder which party that's been. I don't know. Let me clutch my pearls and pretend it's the evil Satanist worshipping leftists that did all that. No, I'm sorry. It was the freaking GOP. Now, I'm not defending the left, yo. I am adamantly calling out the GOP and Trump for their obvious bullshittery. Because I'm sick and tired of it. I'll deal with the leftists when we get to it, when we get over this hump, when we get through this shitstorm. Speaking of storms, I really hope the Trump base isn't still holding their breath for Trump to arrest the not-so-likable Hillary Clinton. Now, there's a lot of criticism we could load up on. We can dogpile on her if we wanted to. We can go low and go petty if we wanted to. We can go straight facts only if we wanted to in a critique of Hillary Clinton. But she's neither here nor there. She's not running for office again. Trump is. She doesn't have a fan base of blind faith, religiously zealotous acolytes foaming at the mouth to declare her the chosen Messiah. That doesn't mean she gets an automatic free pass. That means she's not the priority in my book in terms of who to publicly critique and analyze. Now, we are apparently, although you know how the leftist goes, you know how the DNC be, they are the Charlie Brown in that comic book of Lucy pulling the football out of Charlie Brown. And sometimes they are Lucy. Sometimes the Democratic National Party convention, the DNC, the GOP, I wish they had equally structured acronym names that also rhymed, because I don't like GOP versus DNC. It should be the DNP, the Democratic National Party. The DNP, sometimes in its own buffoonery, because I won't hold back. When I turn my lens of critique on them, I don't hold back, friends. And this is a long-standing thing from before Trump was the MC in the clusterfuck circle jerk circus show that the Trump administration has been. But the DNC, one of its stupidest flaws is that they literally play out the role of Charlie Brown and Lucy against themselves. In so many ways, it's absurd. But I digress. So, fixing and breaking things, it's impossible to say with 100% certainty that the Ohio derailment would never have happened. But gee, I don't know. Maybe if someone else had been in office, preferably not Hillary Clinton, because I wasn't in favor of her to begin with. Maybe if someone else had been in office who didn't put a skeezy person in charge of the EPA, who bent over backwards to appease the mega corporation who just wanted to make more profit at an immoral level at the expense of safety and security and protection for their customers and clients and the neighborhoods they rail through. What else did Trump do? Trump appointed the guy that took away more of the safety net. Right? We already had fucked with Dodd-Frank's and then tried to reinstate it. And then here comes the Trump administration and all the Trumptopians blindly applauding him for saving big mega banks. What? The only people who want deregulation and who hyper-vilify regulation are the profiteers who immorally hyper-profit on a freewheeling Wild West deregulated industrial zone. The less regulation, the more they can immorally profit and not give a flying fart in high wind what it costs in human terms. Let that sink in, friends, because that'll always be true, no matter who's in the White House. Trump also blind-faithedly passed on the big, mega corporate right-wing think tanks nominations for the Supreme Court. Someone recently said to me, "Oh, well, Trump is a victim because the courts are all owned." ... The unstated thing being, the implied conclusion being, the courts are all owned by the evil, blood-drinking, robot, lizard people leftists. The irony being, you know who owns the American court system, and currently in the most obvious way, the Supreme Court? the Heritage Foundation think tank and that other one. Those two think tanks, both of them ultra right-wing, pseudo-religious, and borderline white nationalist organizations. I say borderline in these two instances because they try really hard to not appear on the surface to be engaging in all that. But based on the outcomes and their popularity amongst the Ku Klux Klan, we can come to certain conclusions. So many pins on the corkboard. Please do dig through our past episodes and connect the dots, please and thank you. So we saw how that played out. These pre-approved, pre-selected nominees were handed to Trump, dictated to Trump by an organization that, if it were a Democratic one, would be attacked and hyper-vilified the way they attack and hyper-vilify George Soros, for example. Now, I'm not defending George Soros. I don't know the man. Never met him. And it's a little bit odd to me how many Republicans, how many Trumptopians who have never met the man, who could never personally verify any of the accusations, blindly swallow hook, line, and sinker every derogatory accusation about the guy. Not defending him, just pointing out that that kind of behavior is precisely what PSYOP manipulation is about. The biggest, dumbest, most obvious red flag is the hyper vilification and dehumanization of targeted others. Massive, glowing, bright red pin on the cork board. Go check out the multiple episodes in which I address the issue and, string it all together. So they obviously, these two hand-selected, think tank approved nominees, which Trump just rubber stamped into office like a good puppet boy, they swore, and this is important, they are Supreme Court justices who swore under oath in a court of law during their approval process that Roe v. Wade was settled law and that it would never get overturned. And then what did they do? Now, to many Trumptopians, that's not a bad thing. Because in their minds, they've swallowed all of this Kool-Aid about lizard people and baby eating and demonic monsters from hell. So any immoral activity is warranted and okay by them. They'll turn a blind eye to a little bit of lying and perjury and financial shenanigans and all kinds of nonsense. Because the ends justify the means, according to the rationalization that we are fighting a quote-unquote spiritual war. Pins on the corkboard about that already. So, it's a disaster zone. And Trump has been given free rein to create as much havoc. And now the GOP is sort of feigning shock at it. And sort of blustering and clutching at their pearls. But also not bothering to stand up and defend the guy very hard. And when I refer to capital T, the capital R Republicans, I mean the politicos in powers of position. I do not mean your average underinformed voter. Them I refer to as the base. And the Trump devotees I refer to as Trumptopians. Not as a derogatory term. It's not calling them snowflakes. Although the snowflake, the fuck your feelings, pardon the F-bomb, that's a direct quote. They say that. That wasn't me saying it. The F your feelings crowd sure does break down and weep when you dare to question Trump and his nonsense. And when you corner them with reality. Why is that, I wonder? Could it possibly be that they have, as a mob political party, been manipulated into a position, into a perspective, into a corner that is severely divorced from reality? Oh, gee, I don't know. Maybe that's the most consistent thing I've been calling out about the Trump movement since day one. Hello. So, here we are. 2.5 years after the end of the Trump administration, and the long-teased shoe might finally be dropping. Maybe. And so I ask the Trump base, where's that storm you guys were talking about? Because you all been waiting for that shit for so long. And is it maybe time, dear fellow human beings that must be referred to for clarity as Trumptopians? Not because I hate you irrationally, but because you've declared yourselves acolytes and blind faith believers of this snake oil salesman that you have made your own idol. Is it maybe time? And y'all, those of you who are not Trumptopians, I suggest you maybe start asking your Trumptopian family members and friends this question. Is it maybe time to ask yourself, was the storm always broken? Was it a lie? Just like the rest of the lies? Hillary Clinton was never arrested. He never really built a wall, right? All the things he didn't do, in conjunction with all the money he has taken from you. And mind you, he's in his most recent bout of fundraising has reportedly, according to Fox News, bilked his base for another $1.3 million just in the days since the hubbub about his potential arrest has broken, right? Curiously, his ranting, raving, lunatic monologues about potentially getting arrested might actually backfire. And according to some reporting, I forget where I saw this headline, but I saw a couple of different headlines in the last 2 weeks that his content in that department might actually work against him in a court of law. I don't know exactly what they mean, but that's funny. And here's one of the earliest things I ever said about Trump. This is from back in the 2016 election process. The only person, and this is my assessment, plenty of fearmongers would contradict my statement, but looking at things from a nonpartisan perspective, the only person that is undermining Trump, that has been undermining Trump, the only person that will get Trump in trouble is Trump himself. And now for one last bit of DJ Zed music and our closing thoughts for this episode on the other side. The comedy gold of Trump supporters accusing others, attempting to craft a derogatory nickname of Trump derangement syndrome, running around telling others that they are deranged for criticizing Trump. When who built a golden idol statue of Trump wearing American flag shorts? That's the Trumptopian people. That sounds like deranged behavior. Not only because they claim to be Christians and claim to believe in the Bible and apparently completely forgotten the part where Moses said, "Never again shall any of you build a golden statue idol." I'm sorry, what happened? Oh, let's just ignore that. Oh, right, it's the Old Testament. Fuck it. We don't care. Sorry for the F-bomb. F it. We don't care. It's the Old Testament. Jesus doesn't say we can't. Pick a lane, folks. Also, He's wearing, literally wearing something that is illegal in the United States. Which is funny because there's a massive thriving industry, even though the following is completely against the law in America. The flag and its imagery should not be used in commercial clothing products. That's not the exact wording, but essentially it's what it boils down to. We shouldn't have American flag napkins, tablecloths, beer mug holders, American flag pants, t-shirts, sweaters. All of that is literally against the law. But no one cares. No one cares. I'm not like a blind faith, like bend the knee to the law kind of guy. Trust me. The point in pointing it out is the Republicans pretend to be a back the blue, no one is. Trump said it in the quote I played for you. No one's above the law. Except me, maybe. I'm not even trying to do a Trump impression there. And here it is. The worst, to close out my thoughts on this, the most absurd thought, the most absurd reality about all of this, in my humble opinion, has been Trump's own demeanor the entire time. Completely bogus, saber-rattling, tough guy, blowhard act, which is merely a thin veneer. A thin, sad, easily broken veneer of manly chest thumping. And it's backed up by a snowflake level of spineless whining and biatching and moaning. Literally playing the victim. Here's a guy who simultaneously claimed that only he could fix every single problem, not just with the factual issues that's wrong in the world, not just the actual problems of the government of the United States as it actually is, but totally made up imaginary problems based on this hypervilification conspiracy theory cloud of ideas that all government, except for the people that Trump likes, are actually baby-eating lizard people robot brains from another dimension / planet / hell itself. Good grief! Let me just say this, and we'll wrap it up. A truly manly macho man, a man who's truly a get-her-done kind of guy, does not bitch so much. Call me crazy, but for someone who said he alone can fix everything, he's spent a lot of time whining and complaining and self-victimizing himself and talking about what an evil and overwhelming witch hunt he is the victim of. That to me, coupled with the way the fan base will literally turn a blind eye to every single fact-based moral problem. I mean, what else is the proof that they have created for themselves a blind faith, pseudo-religious cult of personality around this tubby, orange spray tanned, balding pseudo-millionaire. Someone who cosplays that being a millionaire or being a billionaire when he's only just moderately wealthy and kind of constantly running into financial problems. If he was half the manly man he pretends to be, he would have been solving problems and fixing issues and not spent so much time complaining about how the evil bad guys over there are turning him into a victim and then begging his base to send him more money. He's supposed to be a billionaire. He's supposed to be a self-made genius that plays 5-dimensional chess. And yet, his default boilerplate reaction to everything is, I'm a manly man, beat my chest, oh, woe is me. They're going to victimize me with all their evil attacks, and I can't handle it, and you need to send me more money. You know, for a group of people that loves to call everyone else a snowflake, holy moly, does their supreme lord and like role model act like a massive snowflake. So, I mean, the upside here, friends, and the reason that I critique so hard is that I think by criticizing the facts about him, pointing them out over and over again with clarity and simplicity, the Trumptopian base will slowly but surely have their aha moment on an individual one by one person basis and go, oh wow, this guy conned me good. And he does not deserve my blind political ideological faith. That's all I want. I don't want Trump supporters to suddenly be Hillary Clinton supporters. I don't want Trump supporters to suddenly not be who and what they are. I want them simply to acknowledge the reality that those of us who called him a manipulator, those of us who called him a liar and a scam artist, we weren't the crazy ones. That's all I want. And it's not because I'm better than anyone else. It's because it turned out, oh, gee, surprise, surprise. Those of us over here going, hey, don't support this guy. He's a little cuckoo crazy and, a little edgy on the racism thing. Although not an overt racist. He sort of loves to suck up to racist people. And he lies all the time about everything. And he keeps running all his businesses into the ground. This guy does not have the acumen, does not have the mental capacity or the moral integrity to deserve your ongoing blind political faith. And slowly but surely, they've been realizing it, I think, finally. I think watching their own political party distance themselves from Trump and having to face that new aisle of engineered wedge issue, that's hopefully helping them to realize all of this. So here we are, friends. Apparently, maybe he might get arrested this week. I don't know how solid that is. Right? So many investigations, so many legal problems, and yet, and I'm talking his whole life. He's never quite gotten to that level of being held to account. Will this truly be an American historical first? And how will the country react? Will the acolytes in the base, the real adamant, fervent supporters, will they finally take off their blinders and see how manipulative, disingenuous, two-faced, and politically corrupt he has been? I hope so. Because as hard of a pill to swallow as that will be, it will go a long way to helping that side of the political spectrum realize that maybe, just maybe, there's more work to be done beyond the meaningless us versus them dichotomy of fighting against the left for the sake of fighting against the left. But maybe, just maybe, that's a little too much to ask for. I don't know. But you can count on this, friends. Good Morning Trumptopia and the Almost Daily ZenCast will always remain real, raw, and radically unscripted. No one is telling me what to say. No one is paying me to say it. This show is made possible by generous supporters and friends of the broadcast submitting donations and listeners like you listening actively. As always, namaste and thank you. Be sure to get out there and engage your Trumptopian friends with this kind of questioning. The sooner the majority of the slowly eroding Trump base wakes up from this dystopian nightmare of golden idol believing in that guy, the sooner we can regroup and address the mutual problems of the double-sided echo chamber of the two wings, one bird American political system, which have had problematic issues going way back since long before Ronald Reagan was in office, and that some of us have been pointing out for as long. Until next time,